What's up, everyone? Happy Friday. We're doing it, doing it. We're making it through. It is go time. I'm just checking all of my things to make sure we are working. We're doing it, doing it. We're working. There's 4 of you on here. Hello. Lucy has come to join. Lucy, my chief pets officer, my CPO, my steady steed, always by my side. I'm glad you guys are here. Welcome to Strategic Planning for Creatives. I hope you're a creative person. I would assume so. I am as well. I've got, let's see if I can figure out how to do this. I need to share my screen. There we go. Okay. Well, and of course I am all off. There we go. Okay, strategic planning for creatives. Here we go. Hey, Laura Faree. Excellent. Okay, I would love to know what you guys do. Tell me what you do. Post it in the chat. Tell me what kind of creative work you're doing so that we can all share in your genius. Because I am also curious. I will introduce myself while you're doing that. Hello. I'm so glad you're here. It's so good to see you. Welcome to this little project on strategic planning for creatives. I am Karla. I am the designer over at the Inspired Foundry, and I have a love of strategy, talking about how things are put together, how we go about doing things, why we do things the way that we do, and I'm fascinated by coming up with plans for things. And I'll be honest, a little caveat here right at the beginning. I'm not perfect. In fact, my strategic planning is less than perfect. However, I really enjoy doing it. And this framework that I'm going to share with you today has kept me the most consistent over the last 4 years in terms of making plans and like tweaking how I make plans and set goals. So hopefully it'll do that for you. Marielle is here. Marielle, I always get your name wrong, I feel like. Writer and Bible teacher, excited to get some clarity and direction. Yes, well, that is what I am excited to do as well today. I've got my cozy beverage. I hope you all have a cozy beverage because it is, I don't know how cold it is where you are, but it's like a cool 40 degrees here. So cozy beverages are a requirement. So I want to give you just a little bit of backstory about my experience with strategy or lack thereof, which is kind of Marielle. Thank you, Marielle. And Laura says, I really want to take something like this to my full-time gig. They need more forward thinking. Okay. Love some forward thinking. Excellent. Okay. So I am a multi-passionate creative entrepreneur. I do a lot of different things. And 4 or 5 years ago, when I first started thinking about this framework, I was trying to find something that already existed that would help me walk through a year, to review how my year had gone and to set realistic, achievable goals for the upcoming year. And I would always do it in that really cozy time between Christmas and New Year's when time is nebulous and we have no idea what's going on. But it was the perfect time to sit down at a Starbucks or a local coffee shop with my favorite, pens and pencils and journals and whatever worksheets I had found on the internet to help me make some plans. And would often find that these planning tools were either one thing or the other. They were often too corporate or too jargony, or they were too fluffy and they didn't really get me anywhere, right? I was spending all of my time reviewing or reflecting on the year, but not really making a plan. Or I was all about the action and not spending any time thinking about where I had been. Or it was too much of your personal life and not enough about the business. And I didn't know how to integrate them because we're just like not taught how to do that. As far as I know, I did not take a class on how to integrate your work in your personal life. So it was things like, I would hear things about quarterly planning or like, what's your mission statement? And as a creative person coming out of a degree in music, I had like no idea what any of that stuff meant and really no interest in figuring it out because I've always been a person who wants to do things my way, right? And I assume that you guys are like that too. So what my goal, my hope for this session today is that I'll be able to help you come up with a new framework for yourself that you can take and make it your own. And I have tools that you can, take and adapt. But what I have learned from being a creative person and trying to do strategic planning is that we really have to make it work for ourselves. So here's this new framework. I call it strategic planning. It's kind of strategic and seasonal. There's several different components, and we'll kind of get into that. But here it is. Here we go. It's in 3 parts. We start with reflection. We move into vision, and then some action, right? So, and underneath all of these in our reflection, I like to do an annual review, life and business, thinking about all of the things. The part that I love the most and can actually be both daunting and like a smack in the face, a reality check, is this idea of intentions, habits, and priorities. I do them both with reflection and when I'm thinking about vision, but they get reversed. And I'll tell you more about why that is in a little bit. For vision, we think long-term and we think short-term. So it's a long-term dream and like a short-term, what can I realistically achieve in the next 365 days? And then thinking through those same priorities, habits, and creating new intentions. And then our action plan is seasonal, right? So I'm not actually making plans for an entire year. I'm making plans for a season or a quarter, right? 3 months out of the year. We have 4 seasons in a year, 4 quarters, however you want to think about it. I like seasons because seasons feels so much more like relatable and cozy. And like I'd rather much do seasonal planning than quarterly planning. But that's just me. And then the second part of this action framework is defining growth and success, which I don't think we often are taught to do. I think we are conditioned to see what other people would define as growth or success. You should be doing this. You should have 10K months. You should want all of these things. But often everybody's version of growth, of success is different. So I also think it changes fairly often. Like in a season where you have a lot going on in your personal life, growth and success in your business might look very different than when you have more energy and capacity to give to your business, right? So it's sort of just figuring all of those things out and making sure that we're thinking through them before we make any plans. Okay, but so the thing that really makes this framework work, well, there's 2 things actually, the linchpins. The first one is an inventory. So think about taking stock of everything in your life and business. We're talking, I have 4 categories that I like to go through, but generally speaking, you want to consider like your lifestyle, the things you want to create, how you're managing your business on the back end, the people that you're serving, making sure you have all of your brand things in place, right? So understanding the 30,000 foot view of your business, that's thing number 1. Thing number 2 is brand strategy. So brand strategy can go real deep. It can take a long time, or we can keep it really simple, which is what I like to do. So for brand strategy, in order to make this strategic planning framework work, we have to understand what our purpose is, why we're doing what we're doing, right? If we don't start planning from that place, obviously we're not going to like make plans that we actually care about, and then we'll feel crappy. And we don't want that. So let's dive into inventory a little bit. Detailed picture of how your business functions, 30,000-foot view of all of the hats you wear, and it also takes into account work-life integration, right? So not balance, integration. Often I found it as a creative person, and I'm sure you have too, that there's the balance doesn't really exist, right? Like it's always going to be figuring out how to make them work together. And I care about my business so much that a lot of my life is my business. And it's been a problem. Like I haven't set really great boundaries around it, so I'm working on that. But I do think it's important to not shame ourselves for how much we care about our creative pursuits, and instead figure out how we can make plans for our life that considers how much we care about it. So I dive into 4 different categories. Management, so all the back end stuff, how you're taking care of your finances, your bookings, all those different kinds of things. Your brand, so making sure you have these brand strategy pieces in place, your core values, your story, who your audience is, making sure you get all of those things. Creation, so thinking about what you're working on, the projects that you're interested in taking on, or things you're currently working on. It also, I think, encompasses how you, like what you need in order to create. So do you need more training or education, those kinds of things. And then lifestyle. So lifestyle obviously is your boundaries around your work life, how you are interacting with your family, with your friends, all these different relationships you have in your life. So what I generally do is just make a list of everything I can think of within these 4 different categories, so I have a really detailed picture of how my business and my life functions. These are 4 categories that work really well for me. But again, I want this framework to work for you. So if something else comes to mind, like I think I had, back when I started this, I had 5 categories. And I can't remember what the 5th one was. But if you think of something else that makes more sense for you, add it to your inventory. So the second linchpin that makes this really work is your brand strategy. And brand strategy is how you share your message, right? It's deciding what your purpose is, knowing who you serve, and knowing how you want to serve them. And again, this is important because if we decide to like make plans that don't actually come from this place of brand strategy, then what are we doing? Why are we doing this, right? So what I do is I come up with a statement of intention. And I have one that has kind of been tweaked and it will get tweaked again for 2022. But it's basically like a combo mission / vision statement. And if you've never done any kind of brand strategy before, this is a really good starting point because it provides you with a decision filter. So, for instance, the Inspired Foundries statement of intention for this year, for 2021, was that I will realize the potential of inspired ideas so creative entrepreneurs can experience the freedom and impact of artistically aligned design. So I'm all about ideas. I want to jump on your boat with you and cheer you on and raise your sails and help you get to where you want to go. And the way that I do that is through artistically aligned design. So holding up a mirror for you and saying, this is what I see when I experience your work. So you have a really beautiful way to express that. I think it will probably get tweaked for 2022 a little bit, but that's the beautiful thing about strategic planning is, yes, you are making decisions, but as you grow and evolve and change, so do the decisions that you make, right? Like maybe it sounds obvious, but I've always been the kind of person who's like, well, if I say I'm going to do something, then I have to do it. And I can't change my mind, right? I've always felt crappy about changing my mind about something. So this allows you to create a statement of intention. And when your intention changes, so should your statement. And from there, we can build out our goals and our plans and our dreams from a really true place of, who we are and what we desire to do. So let's go back to the framework for a second. we start with reflection. And I love reflection. I mean, reflection is it's one of my favorite things to do, but for so long was one of the reasons why I wasn't actually getting anything done, because I would spend so much time in my own head and like really think about things, but wouldn't like spend too much time um, figuring out what comes next, right? So in reflection, we do these two things. We do an annual review, which is, however you want to tackle that. I like to do, like in the Creative's Almanac, for instance, there's a whole section on history. And I ask a bunch of different questions, like who helped you the most this year? And like, what was your coziest day? And like, if you had to give a beverage of the year award, what would it go to? Silly, stupid things to sort of just like get me thinking about how this year went, what I experienced. I also go into things like accomplishments and challenges, opportunities, as Brene Brown calls them. They're not mistakes, they're opportunities. So thinking about those kinds of things. And then at the end of my reflection, I always look back at intentions that I had made for that current year. So whatever my, if you call them New Year's resolutions, or if you set goals, what were the things that you said you wanted to accomplish this year? And then I look back at my habits. So it's figuring out like what kind of habits did I build this year? And did they help me achieve the kind of success that I wanted? And then from there, from your intentions and your habits, that's where you actually figure out what your priorities were. It's like looking back and saying, oh, I had this goal of reading more, but I created a habit of like watching TV at night instead of reading my book. So was my priority actually to nurture my mind and spend quality time with myself? Or was my priority to lean into an unhealthy coping mechanism, something like that. The big question we're asking with reflection is what happened, but our goal is to do it with facts only and no opinions. So in this part where we're talking about intentions and habits and priorities, it's super easy to like nosedive into shame territory, like dissect all the bad habits and then discover that your priorities were like totally shit, and then you like hate yourself, right? Very easy to do. So the goal is to revisit old intentions so we can revise our language for next year's. Because you're going to make goals, you're going to set the bar high for yourself, or set it lower, and you want to decide how to talk about your intentions so that at the end of the year, at the end of 2022, when you're looking back, you can be like, yes, I actually did this. I actually set intentions that really worked. We talk about old habits so that we can be more realistic about what we commit to next year. And then we talk about these old priorities so we can be honest with ourselves about how we spent our time and decide if any of that needs to change. So that's the reflection section. I love this section, and it's easy to spend a ton of time on it, but there's two more big sections in this framework to go through, right? So it's sometimes helpful to like set a timer and not take too much time in this section so that you can get to what's next. Okay, so the second part two, vision. We're looking at long-term goals, or like things that we want short-term, and then thinking through sort of the reverse from our reflection, which is identifying our priorities first, deciding what habits need to happen so our priorities take priority, and then coming up with new intentions to reflect those habits and those priorities. The big question here is, what am I aiming for? What am I hoping for? What am I dreaming about? What do I really want to happen? And do I actually want what I say I want? Every time I do this vision section, I'm so surprised because my 10-year vision changes from year to year. One year I'm like, oh, I want to be in Target. I want to have a design, like a line of planners or whatever it may be in Target. And the next year I come back and I'm like, but I really don't want to design paper goods anymore, or whatever the case may be. I really want to focus on this thing. So I think I used to be like, why do I have to do long-term planning every year, things change, right? We change. We're constantly evolving. And we want to make sure we're actually being true to the things that we say that we want. So let's see. Is there anything else in this section? I don't think so. I know. Okay. So within the framework, there's different things that I do. I'll do a 10-year vision. I'll do a 5-year vision so that I'm discovering that halfway point. And then I'll take a look at the next 365 days. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the third section, action. So in action, we're doing two different things. We're talking about a seasonal plan, and then we're defining growth and success, right? So a seasonal plan, I usually do this with my inventory. I will pull back out my inventory that I made at the beginning of this planning session, and look through each category: management, creation, brand, and lifestyle, and decide, what's the one thing I want to focus on for the next 3 months? Because we're talking a season, right? Just 3 months. And so I'm trying to create a well-rounded plan for the next 3 months where I have, I'll show you. I've got my seasonal planning from, I don't remember what season this is, summer. Here's my seasonal planning sheet. Super cute. But my management goals are on the left, and then I have a little to-do list on the right for each one of them. And sometimes I don't have a goal for like lifestyle, or I don't have a goal for management because I'm feeling pretty good about what's happening. So I will come up with, a goal, excuse me, in each section of my inventory, make a little to-do list, maybe assign some due dates for things, because now we're thinking granular, like, right, the time you have in front of you, the next 90 days. So you can actually feel like you are making progress because you're only working with a short amount of time. But then the most interesting part of this section of the framework for me is defining growth and success. So on this worksheet, in the Creative's Almanac anyway, when I talk about defining growth and success, I'm looking at, I always write down my statement of intention. I write down the season that we're in. I write down like my word of the year if I have one of those. And then I'm thinking about benchmarks for growth and success. And sometimes I always get these confused, but it's the questions I always ask myself is, in this particular season, over the next 90 days, what does growth feel like? What needs to happen for me to feel like I am making progress? And then the other question is, what does success look like? Are there hard numbers that I'm reaching for in terms of engagement or a dollar figure or something like that? So growth often ends up aligning more with things like education or stepping into a more consistent work schedule or something like that. And success will often be more hard numbers, hard figures. And the question we're asking here is, how will I get there? How will I get to that vision I have set forth from, part 2 in the framework? But how do we do it without burnout, exhaustion, or avoiding all of our other responsibilities, which I am unfortunately super guilty of? So over time, as I've been like, okay, it's time to define our versions of growth and success. It is time for us to really think about what it means for us to grow and feel successful without burning out. How do we do that? And it's often been really lowering my expectations for what I can get done in 90 days. And then I end up actually feeling successful at the end of the season. It's like, oh, if I didn't set such high bars for myself, I might actually reach them at some point. And then you have like a really solid place for how you can move into the next season, right? You have solid metrics or, habits you wanted to build from this past season, and you can take that into the next season when you go to do seasonal planning for the following, whatever's coming up next. Okay, so all of this exists in the Creative's Almanac, which is my seasonal strategic annual workbook. But because you guys are here, I want to give you some excerpts from it. And the excerpts are super fun. They include this inventory that we were talking about, a brand audit, which helps you craft your statement of intention. There's a 2021 year in review. There is the 2022 vision planning. And then I include both seasonal planning and growth and success worksheets so that you can take those and start to make an actionable plan for the next season, right? Like right now we're in fall. So I always plan for winter, which ends up being like December, January, February. Sometimes my seasons don't always align with the quarters of the year, which is fine. It's again, this framework is a do it how you want to do it and make it your own. However, there are some things that are not included in the excerpts that are included in the actual like full version of it. So a big section on history, talking about your old intentions, priorities, and habits from the past year. A bigger section on your 10-year vision, your 5-year vision. A couple of my favorite exercises include a gut check. So it's like, I want to say yes to this. I want to say no to this stuff this year. Figuring out your new priorities, your new habits. My other favorite exercise is a pep talk. You write yourself a little pep talk once you get done with your part 2 vision planning. There's a word of the year exercise in there. And then there's also a 2022 planner that includes 4 seasonal sections and a calendar of each month. So you can have one place to come back to at every season to make your plans for the upcoming quarter. So there's 2 different versions of it. If you're into it and interested, I've got a physical version, which I'm taking pre-orders for until November 15th, and they'll ship the week of December 1st because it's a physical product and it's lovely. And actually right here, I wanted to stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how to do that quickly. How do I do this? How do I stop sharing my screen, you guys? This is new. I'm trying to disable camera. That's not that one. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'll just show you from my tiny little thing here. I've got the 3 previous editions of the Creatives Almanac. And I was hoping that the new one would be here today, but obviously it did not come in time. But the original used to be called the New Year Workbook for Creatives in Business. It was super cute. The second iteration, which I actually ended up printing at home and like binding myself, kind of crazy. And then last year's, which decreased in size and became the Creatives Almanac. But so this year it'll be very similar to this one in size. I think it's like 7 by 10-ish. Perfectly handy, easy to tear pages out. So that's the physical version, but there's also a digital version should you decide that you want it. Let's see if I can show you that. So here's just like an iteration of it on an iPad. And it's like you order it now, you get the digital download, you can start right away. It's editable, so you can type on your computer, which is super fun. So those are, you can get it right now and get down to work. Okay, well, that kind of like brings us to the end of our time here. That went by way fast. But I would love, if there are questions you guys have, pop them in the chat. I'd love to answer whatever thoughts or questions you have about strategic planning, seasonal planning, brand strategy, how to take this framework and make it work for yourself. I would love to answer that. While you're thinking, I will go ahead and say, if you would like this and you haven't already, to drop your email on this website page, live session. Drop your email and I will send out the Creatives Almanac excerpts so that you can get to work on stuff. Thanks, Marielle. I'm so glad you could join. It's so good to see you here. Thank you all so much for joining. You can also shoot me an email or do whatever you need to do to get the information that you need, I am here for you. But look for something from me later on today. Hope you guys have an awesome Friday and an excellent weekend. Happy fall, happy seasonal planning, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye.